I never thought that I would see a day where I would be rooting for a university above Donald J. Trump and his administration. But I don't recognize his administration right now. I don't recognize what's happening. How could Trump be such a free speech enthusiast and allowing these things to happen? Going after college universities, trying to suppress speech, while pretending that you're not suppressing speech, while pretending that you're fighting DEI. It's so messy. It's so obvious. Everyone knows what you're doing. People who are still trying to grift, I suppose, are not willing to challenge you on this, which is ridiculous, because when you are out of office, we are going to have to live with these consequences. Our children are going to have to grow up in this America.
Wait, even Candace Owens is having regrets? When you've lost Candace Owens, you know you've really messed up. She's calling out the contradiction between claiming to support free speech while attacking universities. The irony is not lost on me here.
I voted for Trump and now I regret my vote. Let me explain. Please don't explain. Please, I beg, do not explain. Keep it to yourself. I don't care. I don't care. Don't explain. Because I voted the way I did because I cared about other women, other Black women, other women in general. I cared about other immigrants. I care about low-income people. I cared about all of that because I was voting not only in the way that benefited me, but the way that benefited other people too. You voted based on the way that benefited you.
Took my wife.
This man who wished not to be identified says his wife is from Venezuela and has lived in the United States for a few years. She was one of 3 people taken from this home.
Bricks, all white bricks, all white bricks, like 10 bricks. Just get a lick with 50 more bricks. Ballin' like a bitch with all these bricks.
Hispanic and I vote for Mr. Trump. We vote for Mr. Trump. Yes, Mr. Trump. We love you.
A few moments later.
Beyond betrayed. They used us. They actually, during the campaign, and I don't want to make this political, but during the campaign, the elected officials from the Republican Party, they actually told us that he was not going to touch the documented people.
So today I had a heart-to-heart with a friend at work, and a lot of things he said made sense. You know, he explained a lot of things to me in detail. So, I used to be a Democrat. It was easy to understand where he was coming from. So, I can't believe that I'm about to say it, but yeah, I can't keep supporting Trump no more.
Well, it looks like another Trump supporter is now realizing that they probably shouldn't have supported Donald Trump after a major ICE raid today in Tallahassee, Florida at a construction site. Jake Cohen posted on social media, quote, "Lost a lot of good men today. I like Trump, but this isn't what I voted for. This will absolutely kill the economy in construction. I thought he was going after gang members and criminals with warrants, not hardworking guys." So unfortunately, Jake is now in the finding out stage of supporting Donald Trump. You mess around, you think he's going to be good for the economy, good for the country, tough on the border, and now you're finding out that Donald Trump is just inhumane and also incredibly incompetent.
Ricky Bobby, you about to learn today. We fast, so I hope that your little pea brain can keep up. So if you don't think these China tariffs aren't affecting the food supply, let me break it down for you. I'm Sonia Roselli. I own a skincare brand, and I have been importing for the last 10 years, so I know a little bit about supply chains. And when the it's and it's about to get real. Here's how the China tariffs will affect our food supply and why we all about to go hungry. So it's a goddamn good thing that we're all on these GLP-1s. First of all, when it comes to the food supply, farmers get most of their fertilizer, pesticides, that kind of shit from China. They get a lot of the equipment from China. If they don't have any of that shit pro food, guess what? You're fucking hungry.
If you are one of the hundreds, thousands, millions of people who voted for Trump in November and you regret your vote, you have remorse, especially after seeing how this administration is inhumanely detaining our migrants and our immigrants here in America. If you are now starting to be impacted by some of these policies that you wanted to see come into fruition when you voted for that man, I want to let you know and make it so abundantly clear that this is not a safe space for you. In fact, I'm about to give you some more information that should make your day even more shitty if it hasn't been shitty already. See, when you walked your little happy racist ass to the ballots and you casted that vote for that orange man, you knew damn well what he was going to do because he campaigned on it. But you was hoping that it wasn't going to affect you. I know that you was hoping that it wasn't going to affect you. And now that it has started affecting you, you want to cry out. You want to cry out. No, suck them tears back in and let me tell you what else is about to be affected due to your vote, okay? So, farms, right? The farmers and the produce, you know, the people who actually pick the produce from out the ground, yeah, they were immigrants. So, yeah, that's going to be impacted. Also, restaurants. You see the waitresses, the line cooks, the people who clean up the spot, who wash the dishes. Yeah, they're usually immigrants. So if your service at the restaurant is exceptionally slow and horrible, if the food doesn't taste the way that it used to before, 9 times out of 10, the person who was doing the job before was an immigrant. Okay, next, manual labor. So construction work, baby. And I'm not just talking construction. I also mean landscape. You know them people that you want to hire to come and cut your grass or clean your pool? Trim your hedges? Yeah. And you know that they got the green thumb. So when your grass and your front lawn is all patchy and brown, remember the person that was keeping it green and alive was an immigrant. Okay, next, retail. Y'all be forgetting who be unloading these trucks. Y'all forget for real. But I'm here to remind you, it was an immigrant. Also in hospitality, oh, you know this. Y'all should have known this. In the hotels, on the cruises, the maid services. Y'all forgot? Who was working them jobs? Yeah, it was an immigrant. Also, child caring services, the nannies. Yeah, say bye-bye to your little Brad being bilingual because you helped deport his Mexican, Nicaraguan, Colombian, Dominican, Puerto Rican, Haitian, you helped deport them. You helped that. So, round of applause to you. Also remember, before you come out your face and say, at least now jobs are available, these jobs were always available to Americans. Y'all never wanted to do them. Actually, correction. Y'all didn't want to do it for free. Y'all didn't want to do it while being exploited. You didn't want to do it knowing that you were being underpaid and you had no benefits. But you were okay with letting the migrants and the illegal aliens do it. Correction. You don't want to do it for free. You don't want to do it while being exploited. You don't want to do it knowing that you're being underpaid. You don't want to do it knowing that you don't get no benefits. You don't want to do it knowing that you don't get no time off. Correction.
Yes, ma'am. She is educating these people sector by sector. This is what civic education looks like. The way she systematically broke down every industry that relies on immigrant labor: agriculture, construction, hospitality, retail, childcare. This is the reality check they needed before they voted.
Well, it looks like another Trump supporter is now realizing that they probably shouldn't have supported Donald Trump after a major ICE raid today in Tallahassee, Florida at a construction site. Jake Cohen posted on social media, quote, "Lost a lot of good men today. I like Trump, but this isn't what I voted for. This will absolutely kill the economy in construction. I thought he was going after gang members and criminals with warrants, not hardworking guys." So unfortunately, Jake is now in the finding out stage of supporting Donald Trump. You mess around, you think he's going to be good for the economy, good for the country, tough on the border, and now you're finding out that Donald Trump is just inhumane and also incredibly incompetent. Like during this ICE raid, people who have no criminal record, have been working in the country for decades, and are on their path to becoming legal, were detained and put in windowless buses as their family members watched. Like, that's just incredibly heartbreaking and incredibly evil. And I hope that Trump supporters now realize that his strategy is not just going after bad people. It's going after everyone, regardless of how much you've contributed to your community.
This isn't what I voted for. Yes, it is. You voted for exactly this. You just thought it would only affect other people's workers, other people's communities. Classic NIMBY behavior right here.
Hispanic, and I vote for Mr. Trump. We vote for Mr. Trump. Yes, Mr. Trump. We love you.
A few moments later.
Beyond betrayed. They used us. They actually, during the campaign, and I don't want to make this political, but during the campaign, the elected officials from the Republican Party, they actually told us that he was not going to touch the documented people.
The dramatic shift from "we love you, Mr. Trump" to "beyond betrayed" is absolutely sending me. They used us. Baby, the information was public. He told you exactly what he was going to do. You just chose to believe the version that was convenient for you. Now let me break this down for y'all, because what we just witnessed was a comprehensive lesson in consequences, cognitive dissonance, and the dangers of voting against your own interests while thinking you're somehow exempt from the fallout. First, let's talk about that opening video with the woman who pulled that fake out psych moment. That perfectly encapsulates everything wrong with how some people approach politics like it's entertainment. She's literally making content out of pretending to have regrets while real families are being torn apart by the policies she supports. That's the level of disconnect and privilege we're dealing with here, treating other people's suffering as a punchline. But then we get to the real reactions, and honey, reality's hitting hard. You've got farmers losing their funding, construction workers losing their labor force, small business owners facing impossible tariffs, and every single one of them is acting shocked that the leopard they voted for is eating their face too. The black women in these videos are serving up some of the most articulate, passionate, and morally clear responses I've ever seen. They're not here for the crocodile tears, they're not here for the "I didn't know" excuses, and they're absolutely not here for the selective sympathy. When that sister said, "Please don't explain. Please, I beg, do not explain," she was speaking for everyone who tried to warn these people and got ignored, dismissed, or called fearmongers. And can we talk about the education happening in that breakdown video? She systematically went through every industry that relies on immigrant labor: agriculture, construction, hospitality, retail, childcare, landscaping, methodically explaining how these votes are going to impact their daily lives. That's the kind of civic education that should have happened before the election. But here we are having to spell out the obvious consequences after the damage is done. The most telling part of all of this is how every single regretful voter thought the cruelty would be directed elsewhere. They thought the ICE raids would only target the bad ones. They thought the tariffs would only hurt China and somehow magically not affect American consumers. They thought the cuts would only affect other people's programs. It's classic NIMBY mentality, not in my backyard. But here's what really gets me fired up: the absolute audacity of expecting sympathy after voting for policies specifically designed to harm others. You voted for family separation at the border, but now you're upset when ICE takes your community members. You voted to gut environmental protections and social programs, but now you're mad that your farm funding got cut. You voted for massive tariffs without understanding basic economics, but now you're surprised that prices went up for you too. The cognitive dissonance is absolutely staggering. These people had access to the same information the rest of us did. Economists warned about the tariffs. Immigration experts warned about the labor shortages. Policy analysts broke down exactly what would happen to various programs and industries. The information was there, but feelings and vibes trumped facts and data. And let's be real about what's happening with these Black Trump voters specifically. There's a particular kind of tragedy in watching people vote against their own community's interests and then act surprised when those policies harm them too. Racism isn't a shield that protects you from the consequences of supporting racist policies. When you align yourself with white supremacy, you don't get special treatment. You just get used and discarded like everyone else. The economic impacts we're seeing are just the beginning. When you remove millions of workers from key industries, when you slap massive tariffs on essential goods, when you gut funding for infrastructure and social programs, these aren't abstract policy debates. These are real consequences that affect real people's ability to feed their families, keep their businesses running, and maintain their quality of life. What's particularly frustrating is watching people act like this information wasn't available. The Congressional Budget Office published reports on the economic impact of mass deportations. Trade economists explained how tariffs work. Immigration policy experts warned about labor shortages. But somehow, all of this readily available information got filtered through social media bubbles and partisan talking heads until people convinced themselves that somehow the laws of economics wouldn't apply to them. The farmer in one of those videos talking about steak prices going from 83 cents to $1.74. That's basic economics right there. Tariffs get passed on to consumers. It's not rocket science. But when you're voting based on culture war grievances instead of economic reality, you end up surprised when economic reality bites you in the rear. And now we're supposed to feel sorry for people who are experiencing the exact consequences that were predicted? Nah, that energy needs to go toward the people who tried to warn everyone and got called fearmongers, toward the communities that knew they'd be targeted and tried to protect themselves, toward the workers and families who are bearing the brunt of these policies through no choice of their own. The choir singing about bricks while showing footage of ICE raids is honestly one of the most brilliant pieces of social commentary I've seen. It perfectly captures the surreal nature of this moment, the celebration of accountability mixed with the genuine tragedy of families being torn apart. It's beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time, and it shows how Black communities are processing this moment with both humor and righteous anger. But here's what gives me hope: the clarity and conviction in these black women's voices. They're not falling for the gaslighting, they're not accepting the false equivalencies, and they're not entertaining the idea that ignorance is an excuse. They understand that this is about fundamental values and moral choices, not just policy disagreements. When that sister said, "You voted for a man who's a predator. You voted for a man who sexually assaulted women and made jokes about it. You voted for a man that has decades-long racism and bigotry, and yet you still voted for him," she was cutting straight to the heart of the matter. This was never just about economics or immigration policy. This was about what kind of country we want to be and what we're willing to tolerate in our leaders. The fact that people could overlook the racism, the sexism, the corruption, the incompetence, and the cruelty because they thought it would benefit them personally tells us everything we need to know about their character. And now they want sympathy because the cruelty they voted for is affecting them too? Absolutely not. This is a moment for accountability, not sympathy. This is a moment for education, not coddling. And this is definitely a moment to listen to the voices of the people who saw this coming and tried to warn everyone, especially the black women who are out here serving truth with no chaser. The woman who broke down all the industries that depend on immigrant labor wasn't just educating people about economics. She was holding up a mirror to their hypocrisy. Americans didn't want to do those jobs under the same exploitative conditions that immigrants were forced to accept, but they were perfectly fine benefiting from that exploitation as long as they could pretend it wasn't happening. And that's really what all of this comes down to: a system built on exploitation and willful ignorance, where people could benefit from cheap labor and services while simultaneously voting to punish the very people providing those services. The contradiction was always there, but it took the implementation of these policies for the consequences to become unavoidable. The tragedy isn't just that people voted against their economic interests, it's that they voted against their moral interests too. They chose cruelty over compassion, division over unity, and short-term thinking over long-term stability. And now they're reaping what they sowed. But I want to end on this note. The voices we heard in these videos, particularly the black women speaking truth to power, represent the best of who we can be as a society. They're modeling accountability, moral clarity, and the kind of righteous anger that leads to positive change. They're not letting people off the hook, but they're also not losing sight of the bigger picture. Y'all voted for chaos, and chaos is what you got. Welcome to the consequences of your choices.
It's not enough just to say you're for something. You may actually have to do something and possibly sacrifice a little bit.
Former President Barack Obama has finally broken his silence, delivering a blistering critique of Trump's White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. As tensions reach a boiling point in Washington, Obama's pointed remarks about loyalty, truth, and democratic values directly challenge Leavitt's unwavering defense of controversial policies. Obama speaks out. Former President Barack Obama has recently broken his silence regarding the current administration, particularly targeting White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt's unwavering loyalty to President Donald Trump. As tensions continue to rise in Washington, Obama's criticism has ignited significant debate about the role of the press secretary and the relationship between truth and political allegiance in the White House. In a powerful speech at Hamilton College, Obama didn't mince words about the current state of American politics, emphasizing the importance of taking action rather than merely expressing support for ideals.
It's been easy during most of our lifetimes to say you are progressive, or say you are for social justice, or say you're for free speech, and not have to pay a price for it. And now we're at one of those moments where, you know what, it's not enough just to say you're for something. You may actually have to do something and possibly sacrifice a little bit.
The former president's words seem particularly pointed in the context of Leavitt's role as Trump's press secretary, where she has consistently defended the administration's policies, often in the face of significant criticism. Obama has expressed concern about Trump's immigration enforcement, especially the zero-tolerance policy that led to family separations at the border, highlighting what many see as a stark contrast to his own administration's approach. While Obama hasn't directly named Leavitt in his criticisms, the connection between his concerns and her position as the public face defending Trump's policies is unmistakable. As revealed in the comprehensive research analysis, Obama's criticisms of Trump's immigration policies directly conflict with the positions Leavitt defends in her role as press secretary. Obama's approach to immigration during his presidency focused on targeted deportations, prioritizing serious criminals over families, as outlined in his 2014 executive actions. In contrast, Leavitt has publicly supported the current administration's broader deportation efforts, which include all undocumented immigrants. In one notable press briefing, Leavitt characterized all illegal immigrants as criminals for breaking immigration laws, representing a significant departure from Obama's more nuanced approach. The former president has also been vocal about his opposition to divisive rhetoric that portrays immigrants as threats, contrasting sharply with Leavitt's communications strategy. During a CNN interview, Obama criticized Trump's lack of preparation and divisive language, particularly on immigration, highlighting the philosophical differences between the two administrations. In another forceful statement at Hamilton College, Obama connected democratic values to everyday economic concerns.
Well, you know what? It's about to affect the price of eggs. One of the things that has distinguished us in the past has been this basic idea that we are a rules-based society. What that means is that, you know what, I can support one candidate instead of another, and I don't have to worry that the police are going to come harass me or my customers.
This statement appears to be addressing concerns about the Trump administration's use of executive power, which some critics have characterized as overreaching. Obama's emphasis on the importance of maintaining democratic norms, even when they seem abstract, suggests a deep concern about the direction of the current administration. The clash between Obama's views and Leavitt's defense of Trump's policies extends beyond immigration. Obama has criticized Trump's use of executive orders, such as attempts to end birthright citizenship, arguing they were unconstitutional and politically motivated. In contrast, Leavitt has defended these actions, stating in a press briefing, "This administration believes that birthright citizenship is unconstitutional," directly countering Obama's position on the legality and morality of such actions. The former Vice President, Kamala Harris, has also joined Obama in criticizing the current administration's actions. In a recent statement, Harris expressed concern about the predictability of Trump's controversial policies.
Because, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so.
Harris's comments reflect a growing sentiment among Democrats that the current administration's actions, while alarming, are not surprising given Trump's previous tenure. This perspective adds weight to Obama's criticisms, suggesting a pattern of behavior rather than isolated incidents. The rivalry between Obama and Trump has deep roots, stretching back to Trump's promotion of the birther conspiracy theory during Obama's presidency. This personal attack, which falsely claimed Obama was not born in the U.S., deeply affected the former president and has contributed to his ongoing opposition to Trump's political agenda. According to Bill Daley, Obama's chief of staff in 2011, "You cannot underestimate the birth certificate thing. That was an attempt to totally discredit his credibility as a person." This history adds context to Obama's current criticisms, suggesting that his concerns about Leavitt's role in the Trump administration are part of a broader pattern of opposition to what he perceives as attacks on democratic norms and institutions. Despite this contentious history, there have been moments of civility between Trump and Obama. At Jimmy Carter's state funeral on January 9, 2025, the two were photographed speaking, and Trump later told Fox News that they probably do like each other, describing their interaction as very friendly. This glimpse of personal rapport amid their political rivalry adds an interesting dimension to Obama's public criticisms of Trump's administration and Leavitt's role within it. The relationship between Obama and Trump continues to evolve, with Trump recently expressing interest in a hypothetical 2028 presidential matchup with Obama, despite constitutional limits under the 22nd Amendment. On March 31st, 2025, Trump told reporters, "I'd love that boy, I'd love that," about facing Obama, reflecting his ongoing perception of Obama as a significant rival. As Obama continues to speak out against the current administration, his criticisms of Leavitt's role as press secretary highlight broader concerns about the future of American democracy. His emphasis on the need for action rather than merely words suggests a call for accountability and a return to democratic norms that he believes are under threat. In a recent CNN interview, political commentator and Democratic strategist Paul Begala highlighted the significance of Obama's timing and influence.
One of President Obama's great gifts in politics is timing. He's not out there in your face every day. He's the way Trump has to be, he's the president, okay? But he picks his moments and he knows what he is doing.
Begala's analysis underscores the strategic nature of Obama's public statements, suggesting that his criticism of Leavitt and the Trump administration is not merely reactive, but calculated to have maximum impact. As Leavitt continues to defend Trump's policies as White House press secretary, the contrast between her approach and Obama's vision for America remains stark. The former president's criticism criticisms highlight not only policy differences, but fundamental disagreements about the role of government, the treatment of immigrants, and the importance of democratic norms in American society. Leavitt's unwavering loyalty to Trump and its implications. Karoline Leavitt's loyalty to President Donald Trump has been a defining characteristic of her role as White House press secretary, drawing both praise from supporters and criticism from opponents. At just 27 years old, Leavitt has become the youngest person to hold this influential position, and her unwavering devotion to Trump has raised questions about the balance between loyalty to the president and commitment to factual reporting. Leavitt's journey to becoming press secretary began with her early involvement in Trump's first administration, where she served as an intern in the White House Office of Presidential Correspondence before advancing to an assistant press secretary role. During this time, she claimed to fight against what she perceived as biased mainstream media, aligning herself with Trump's narrative about fake news. This early alignment with Trump's messaging foreshadowed her current approach to the press secretary position. After Trump's 2020 election loss, Leavitt maintained her connection to his political circle by working as the communications director for New York Representative Elise Stefanik, a staunch Trump ally. In 2021, she launched a congressional campaign in New Hampshire's 1st District on a distinctly MAGA platform, emphasizing policies like tax cuts and strong borders that mirrored Trump's priorities. Notably, her campaign amplified the false belief that the 2020 election was stolen from Trump, distinguishing her from other primary opponents and further cementing her loyalty to the former president. A pivotal moment in Leavitt's relationship with Trump came in March 2022 when she met him at Mar-a-Lago during a fundraising event. This meeting proved crucial as she secured Trump's non-endorsement of her Republican opponent Matt Mowers, which helped her win the September 2022 primary by nearly 7,000 votes, despite early polls showing her at only 7%. Following her primary victory, Trump publicly congratulated her on X, formerly Twitter, stating, "Amazing job by Karoline Leavitt in her great New Hampshire victory. Against all odds, she did it, and will have an even greater victory on November 8th. Wonderful energy and wisdom." Although Leavitt lost the general election to Democrat Chris Pappas, her loyalty to Trump remained steadfast. In a telling exchange after her loss, Trump reportedly told her, "They cheated you out of it," while expressing gladness she lost, as it led to her current role as press secretary. This interaction highlights the mutual loyalty between Trump and Leavitt, with Trump valuing her dedication even in defeat. Since assuming the role of White House press secretary in 2025, Leavitt has continued to demonstrate her loyalty to Trump through her defense of his policies and actions. Trump's confidence in her was evident in his announcement of her appointment, praising her as smart, tough, and highly effective, and expressing confidence in her ability to deliver his message. The depth of Leavitt's loyalty is perhaps most apparent in her handling of press briefings, where she consistently defends Trump's policies against criticism. Her approach has been described in Politico as showing unusually steady, unblinking devotion to the president. This steadfast defense extends to controversial issues, such as when she struggled to explain Trump's executive order targeting Chris Krebs, the former director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. In that particular instance, when pressed about potential abuse of power, Leavitt responded, "Look, the president signed that executive order. It's the position of the president in this White House that it's well within his authority to do it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have signed it." This response exemplifies her tendency to justify Trump's actions without addressing underlying concerns, reflecting her primary loyalty to the president rather than to addressing potential hypocrisy. Leavitt's media interactions further illustrate her devotion to Trump's messaging. She has been described as slick, pugnacious, and fiercely loyal, fostering hostility with the press, much like her boss. This approach has earned her praise from Trump supporters, including Trump himself, who has publicly commended her performance.
Caroline, look at you, huh? They said, sir, she's just too young. And I said, I don't know about that. She did awfully good because she did it during the campaign and she was awfully good. And she's been amazing.
Trump's praise continues.
Everyone's talking about you. Thank you very much. Great.
Leavitt's loyalty is also evident in how she speaks about Trump, consistently expressing complete faith in his decision-making.
Trust in President Trump. He knows what he's doing. This is a proven economic force.
This unwavering confidence in Trump extends to her defense of his economic policies, despite concerns from economists about potential negative impacts.
Every day, the president is signing executive orders to cut regulation, especially when it comes to Environmental Protection Agency, our energy industry. That's going to unleash the economic boom in this country that we saw in the president's first.
However, Leavitt's loyalty to Trump has drawn criticism for potentially compromising her commitment to factual reporting. During a press briefing covered by The Guardian, she was asked about balancing loyalty to the president with loyalty to facts. Her response, "I commit to telling the truth from this podium every single day. I commit to speaking speaking on behalf of the President of the United States was seen by some as prioritizing Trump's narrative over objective truth, especially given his history of disputed claims. Critics have drawn unsettling parallels between Leavitt's role and spokespeople in authoritarian regimes. The Guardian article notes, Trump's press secretaries are usually performing for an audience of one. Just as he expects his generals to be as loyal as Hitler's, he expects his spokespeople to spin like Kim Jong-un's. This comparison implies that Leavitt's loyalty may lead her to spin information in ways that mirror Trump's views, potentially at the expense of journalistic integrity. Joe Lockhart, a former Clinton press secretary, offered a particularly pointed criticism of Leavitt, stating that she focuses solely on pleasing Trump and his base. They're always only speaking to their own people. They do not care about the rest of us, because they don't need those people to keep Republicans in charge. This criticism suggests that her loyalty limits her ability to engage with a broader audience, potentially alienating those outside Trump's supporter base and reducing the press secretary's role as a bridge between the administration and the public. One of the most revealing instances of Leavitt's loyalty to Trump occurred during a March 19, 2025 press briefing, where she criticized U.S. District Judge James Boasberg for blocking the Trump administration's deportation efforts under the Alien Enemies Act. In her criticism, Leavitt made a significant factual error that was immediately corrected by a reporter.
And this judge, Judge Boasberg, is a Democrat activist. He was appointed by Barack Obama. His wife has donated more than $10,000 to Democrats, and he has consistently shown his disdain for this president and his policies, and it's unacceptable.
The reporter goes,
I wanted to go about the idea that these people are all foreign terrorists, but Judge Boasberg was originally appointed by George W. Bush and then elevated by Barack Obama. I just feel like I should clear that up.
Rather than acknowledging the correction, Leavitt pivoted to a different argument about judicial bias against Trump.
67% of all of the injunctions in this century have come against which president? Donald J. Trump. Let me say that again. 60% of the injunctions by partisan activists in the judicial branch have come against President Donald Trump, and 92% of those have been from Democrat-appointed judges.
This incident highlights what some perceive as a tendency to prioritize loyalty to Trump's narrative over factual accuracy, even when presented with immediate corrections. The tension between Leavitt's role as press secretary and expectations of transparency and independence is particularly evident in the context of Trump's deportation policies. During an ABC News interview with Terry Moran, Trump defended controversial deportation practices, including the deportation of Venezuelans to El Salvador without due process. When Moran pressed about the legal requirement for hearings before deportation, Trump responded dismissively, "If you're going to have 21 million people and we have to get a lot of them out because they're criminals, we're going to have to act fast. We can't do you think we can give 21 million trials?" As the public face, defending these policies, Leavitt faces the challenge of justifying actions that critics like Obama have condemned as violations of democratic norms and human rights. Her continued loyalty to Trump in the face of these controversies underscores the complexity of her position and the tension between personal loyalty and institutional responsibility. Leavitt's loyalty to Trump has also influenced her relationship with Obama, as she has made limited statements about the former president, focusing primarily on policy comparisons rather than personal attacks. In a February 21, 2025 press briefing, she noted that Trump had signed more executive orders in his first month than Obama did over the same period, and mentioned that the Senate confirmed more cabinet-level nominees than at this point under the Obama administration in 2009. These comparisons appear designed to emphasize Trump's efficiency rather than directly criticize Obama's legacy. As Leavitt continues in her role as White House press secretary, her unwavering loyalty to Trump remains her defining characteristic. While this loyalty has earned her praise from Trump and his supporters, it has also raised significant questions about the balance between personal allegiance and professional responsibility, particularly in the context of democratic norms and institutional integrity that Obama has repeatedly emphasized as essential to American democracy. The clash of visions and democratic principles. The escalating tension between former President Barack Obama and White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt represents more than a personal disagreement. It embodies a fundamental clash of visions for America's democratic future, as Obama breaks his silence to criticize the current administration, and Leavitt stands firmly by President Trump's policies. Their contrasting approaches highlight broader questions about truth, loyalty, and the preservation of democratic norms in an increasingly polarized political landscape. Obama's recent public statements reflect his growing concern about the erosion of democratic principles under the Trump administration. In a powerful address, he emphasized the necessity of citizen engagement in preserving democracy.
It is up to all of us to fix this. It's not going to be because somebody comes and saves you. The most important office in this democracy is the citizen, the ordinary person who says, no, that's not right.
This call to action stands in stark contrast to Leavitt's approach as press secretary, where her primary focus appears to be defending Trump's policies regardless of criticism. The divergence in their perspectives is particularly evident in their views on immigration policy, a key point of contention between the Obama and Trump administrations. During Obama's presidency, his administration was known for targeted deportations, focusing on felons rather than families, as outlined in his 2014 executive actions. He emphasized the need for humane and comprehensive reform, balancing enforcement with compassion. In contrast, Leavitt has defended the Trump administration's broader deportation efforts, which include all undocumented immigrants. In her first press briefing, she emphasized the administration's focus on deporting heinous illegal immigrant criminals, while also claiming that all illegal immigrants are criminals for breaking immigration laws. This philosophical difference extends to their views on executive power and the role of the judiciary. Obama has criticized Trump's use of executive orders to challenge birthright citizenship, arguing they were unconstitutional and politically motivated. In contrast, Leavitt has defended these actions, framing them as necessary measures to address immigration concerns. The clash between Obama and Leavitt also highlights differing perspectives on the role of truth in political discourse. Obama's emphasis on democratic norms includes a commitment to factual accuracy and transparency. In his recent speech, he stressed the importance of standing by principles even when it's difficult.
Quality? Are we willing to fight for it? Are we going to risk something for it? We say that we're for rule of law. Are we going to stick to that when it's tough, not when it's easy? We believe in freedom of speech. Do we stand up for freedom of speech when the other person talking is saying stuff that infuriates us and is wrong and hurtful? Who are we as a country, and what values do we stand for?
This commitment to principles contrasts with what critics perceive as Leavitt's prioritization of loyalty to Trump over factual accuracy. The incident where she mischaracterized Judge Boasberg's appointment, claiming he was appointed by Obama when he was initially appointed by George W. Bush, exemplifies this tension. Despite being corrected in real time, Leavitt pivoted to different talking points rather than acknowledging the error. The stakes of this clash extend beyond personal disagreements to the fundamental health of American democracy. Obama has warned about the tangible consequences of eroding democratic norms.
That's what happens in other places. That's what happens in Russia. You know, we take for granted the idea that we don't have to pay bribes or hire somebody's cousin in order to get a business permit.
These concerns take on added weight in light of recent controversies surrounding the Trump administration's deportation practices. In an ABC News interview with Terry Moran, Trump defended his administration's deportation of Venezuelans to El Salvador, dismissing questions about due process with the statement, "We can't have a trial, a major trial for every person that came in illegally. We have thousands of murderers that came in. They're going to murder people. They already have murdered people in our country. We have to get them out. We have to get them out fast." This approach has drawn criticism from unexpected quarters. Joe Rogan, a popular podcaster and Trump supporter, expressed concern about rounding up gang members and shipping them to El Salvador with no due process, warning, "We got to be careful that we don't become monsters while we're fighting monsters." This criticism from a Trump supporter highlights the breadth of concern about the administration's methods, even among those ideologically aligned with the president. As Leavitt continues to defend these controversial policies, the contrast with Obama's vision for America becomes increasingly stark. Their clash represents not just a disagreement about specific policies, but a fundamental disagreement about the nature of American democracy and the responsibilities of those in positions of power. The economic dimension of this clash has also become increasingly prominent, with Obama warning that democratic principles are not abstract concepts, but have real-world implications for Americans' financial well-being. Former Vice President Kamala Harris echoed these concerns in a recent statement.
Each day in these last few months in our country, And it understandably creates a great sense of fear.
This economic anxiety is evident in recent polls and political analysis. Democratic strategist Paul Begala highlighted the connection between economic concerns and broader democratic issues, noting that Americans who supported Trump for economic reasons may be reconsidering as they face higher costs for essential goods. The people who moved and put Trump in, they put him in because the cost of living was too high, and he is raising the cost of their groceries, gas, and rent, Begala observed. The economic impact of Trump's policies, particularly his tariffs, has become a flashpoint for criticism. During his ABC News interview, Trump defended his trade policies despite concerns about their economic consequences, insisting, "Everything's going to be just fine." When pressed about the impact on small businesses that rely on overseas sourcing, Trump dismissed these concerns, stating, "I've been here for 3 months. I've taken a trade deficit down to a number that's very starting to get really good. I just got here." This economic tension is reflected in the growing protest movement against the Trump administration, which some analysts compare to the Tea Party movement that emerged during Obama's presidency. Political consultant Kristen Soltis Anderson warned Republicans that Democrats are most feeling fury in response to the administration's actions, suggesting that this anger could translate into significant political mobilization. The clash between Obama and Leavitt also highlights differing approaches to presidential communication. Obama's carefully timed interventions contrast with Trump's more frequent and spontaneous communications, often defended and amplified by Leavitt. Political commentator Paul Begala praised Obama's strategic approach, noting, "He's not out there in your face every day. He's the way Trump has to be as the president, okay? But he picks his moments and he knows what he is doing." As the rivalry between Obama and Trump continues to shape American politics, Leavitt's role as the public face of the Trump administration places her at the center of this ideological conflict. Her unwavering loyalty to Trump and her defense of his controversial policies stand in stark contrast to Obama's emphasis on democratic norms and the rule of law. The consequences of this clash extend beyond political disagreements to fundamental questions about the future of American democracy. Obama's warnings about the erosion of democratic norms under the Trump administration and Leavitt's steadfast defense of Trump's actions represent competing visions for America's identity and values. In his address, Obama emphasized the concrete impacts of democratic principles on everyday life.
That's how we built the economy we did. That's why this place worked. And it has very concrete impacts on all of our lives.
This perspective stands in contrast to what critics perceive as the Trump administration's willingness to bend or break democratic norms in pursuit of policy goals. As Leavitt continues to defend the administration's actions, and Obama continues to speak out against what he sees as threats to American democracy, their clash serves as a microcosm of the broader political divisions facing the country. The ongoing conflict between these contrasting visions represents not just a political disagreement, but a fundamental debate about the nature of American democracy and the responsibilities of those who hold power. As citizens navigate this polarized landscape, the tension between Obama's emphasis on democratic principles and Leavitt's loyalty to Trump highlights the challenging questions facing the nation about truth, loyalty, and the preservation of democratic norms in an increasingly divided political environment. If you loved this video, click on the card showing on your screen for more videos like this.